Okay, this has been the hardest video to make because I'm going to keep this spoiler free, but it's going to be a review of my experience on the Galactic Starcruiser. And so it's going to be me here talking now that I'm back home, back from Florida. It's going to be me talking, explaining how things went down, some of my criticisms, some of the things I really loved, while putting footage over it. I hope this makes sense from it without spoiling anything. But also stay tuned because I will be doing a full spoiler video. But for now, let's get into my recap. Hey everybody, welcome to the Dano channel. I am Dano and I'm back from the Starcruiser. I mean, just right off the bat, I loved it. I loved it. But was it perfect? No, it was not perfect. So I do want to get into my thoughts, again, like I said, my criticism, some of the things I liked, some of the things I didn't like, and just kind of lay it all out for you, just to give you my real honest thoughts and opinion as a guy who paid $1,750 for this experience. So while this experience wasn't perfect, and there was definitely some things that I felt could be better, I absolutely felt leaving like it was worth every penny. I paid $1,750 to share a cabin with 3 other adults, and while I could spend that same amount of money on a trip to a foreign country or an all-inclusive cruise that has alcohol and multiple excursions, there's no way I could spend $1,800 in any other way and get this exact same kind of experience. It's just not possible. Like there's nothing that can replicate this for even more money. You know, even if I paid $3,000, I couldn't use $3,000 to replicate what this was. So it was a very unique and interesting experience, and I left feeling like it was worth it. Now, that said, a big part of this whole experience was made so special because the group I was with, we all came to like engage fully, play hard, and we all dressed up, and for many of us, it was actually our first time meeting in person. My good friend and now sister Sara, who's been a part of this Starcruiser journey with me here on my channel for months now, since like August is when we got in touch because of Starcruiser. And now, you know, we've met in person and we're family now. Like it changed things for us. It was really, really cool. That and the other group, Thank the Maker, who's with us, Mike from Hondo Supply, Meredith and Austin were really amazing too. And these were all people, I mean, I had never met any of them in person. I've talked to Mike before. I had a conversation with Adam from Thank the Maker. And again, Sara through the screen, but otherwise we all kind of came together. And even Thank the Maker, for them, it was the first time they were really like in a room together was this trip. It was the first time they were all in the same room because they are on different parts of the country. So this whole thing really brought us all together in a cool, unique way because we're all Star Wars fans who wanted to be engaged and dive in on this really deep Star Wars adventure. So I do weigh that in when I think about was it worth it, is knowing that the group I was with played heavily on that, and that's not Disney's doing, that's our doing. That's because the personalities that we are made this worth it. So that's something to consider when you're planning on who to go with, right? Are you going to go with someone who's going to be kind of a stick in the mud and be like, yeah, I don't want to play along and talk to characters? That's not for them. It's not for that kind of person. It's for someone who does want to play along and introduce themselves to the captain, because they'll get to know you and you get to know them, and it's a very interactive thing, and that's not for everybody, and that's cool. Like if it's not your thing, that's fine. But it's pretty amazing. Like it's really cool. All right. So first off, the Galactic Starcruiser is not a hotel. Now I said this months ago, but anyone who refers to it as a hotel doesn't understand what it is. Like if someone's calling it a Star Wars hotel still, and they missed it, or I don't know. Maybe they're just using it for search terms, but it's not a hotel. And to call it that diminishes what it is. It's not even. No, it's not. And sure, part of what you're paying for is the cabin, right? Like you are paying for a hotel stay for 2 nights, but it's so much more than that. And that cabin, though it looks small, it's actually a bit more spacious than I thought it was going to be.
And this room is actually a little bit bigger than I thought it would be. The bunk it's deep. I'm not at all worried about getting into this bunk. I'm a big dude. You guys know that. Check it out. I mean, there's so much room in this bunk, actually. There's a lot of room. You want to see here? Oh, very little issue. Okay, feet at the very bottom. I'm in the bunk, and I still have a couple inches left. My feet are all the way down at the bottom. It's a big bunk.
Now, the room was actually pretty cool, and while I wish we had more room for like luggage, the cabin was really only used for a couple hours for sleep and then some quick wardrobe changes. Otherwise, we were all busy running around and engaging with characters and building our stories. And at the end of the night, we would hang out in the Sublight Lounge and recap what we saw during the day with some very interesting cocktails and food presentation. Now, speaking of the food presentation and the cocktails, the alcoholic drinks are not included, and they range in price from $15 all the way to $35. Now, you're thinking $35 for a drink? It's a drink that comes with a collectible mug. It's a very nice presentation. It's a whole thing. So those are specialty items, similar like they have at Oga's Cantina on Batu. Now, the drink menu includes 4 beers on tap, also seen at Oga's Cantina on Batu, 4 wines, 3 sparkling wines, and 2 specialty non-alcoholic drinks in case you want something fancy with no booze or something for the kids. The Sublight Lounge gave off a very classy Star Wars kind of vibe, like a la Canto Bight. And honestly, the whole ship kind of did too. It gave that, like some people say, it doesn't look Star Wars, it doesn't feel Star. To me, it felt Star Wars. It felt very Coruscant. It felt very Canto Bight. It felt very like Naboo, even like the nicer parts of Star Wars that people seem to forget. Now, the food presentation at dinner was very fancy. Our waiters were really, really accommodating, as we had members of our group who had special dietary needs, like gluten-free. There were some vegans in our group. And the chefs, or the servers, were really attentive and good about taking notes, like right when you get there. And because you sit at the same table each night, and you have the same server each night, they know, and they prep ahead of time. They have a list for each guest. They say, all right, we know you have these certain restrictions or things you don't want, so we're going to make something for you special. Otherwise, everything else is served family style. So though I had someone sitting right next to someone who had special plates made for them, which was really cool to see, they put on our table family style presentation of everything. We just kind of take as we needed, which is really cool. And also the food was just, for the most part, delicious. During the lunch and breakfast, it was more of a kind of like a cafeteria style, same dining room, which is weird that it transforms at night and looks so much classier. But it's more of like a cafeteria style lunch and breakfast where you get these trays and you can like put these little dishes onto your tray, and they're all different things. I didn't get to try everything because I wasn't hungry. I didn't want to be wasteful. I mean, I was hungry and I ate, but like I didn't want to like get stuff just to get stuff. So I did try quite a bit. Everything I had was pretty good. There were some things, and everything was Earth food, right? It was all Earth-based food, but it wasn't. It was presented or deconstructed or done in a way that looked Star Warsy, which was fun. It was a lot of fun. And of course, they had blue milk and green milk on tap, because of course you have to, as well as your normal soft drinks, Coke products like Disney always has. Now, again, the blue milk and green milk are not frozen like they are at the milk stand on Batu, but instead they're chilled, and so they're a little more runny, a little more loose, not like a slushy kind of. You get what I'm saying. If you've had blue milk before, you know what I'm saying. But this milk, it might have even been a different recipe. It was good, but it didn't have that same mouthfeel, so I don't know for sure. But it was still very good. And so I mentioned dinner earlier, and dinner served family style, but we had 3 tables put together, and so it was like one giant super table, and we were right at the front for Gaia's performance on night 1, and it was amazing. It was cool that we had 3 cabins worth of people in our group. Like we were kind of all booked together. Sarah's family, the Think the Maker people, myself, Mike from Hondo Supply, and Austin and Meredith were in a cabin. And then also there was a 4th cabin that we weren't like booked with, but my good friends Magic Journeys, Miguel and Janelle, were there, and I was like, that was kind of cool that we had the little block of rooms at the very end of the hallway, us 4. But the 3 of us that traveled together, we did have one mega table that was front row for the Gaia performance. And at first we were kind of bummed that we couldn't get Captain's Table, like it was already gone by the time we booked. It's very exclusive to get Captain's Table. It's $30 upcharge. You get extra dishes. Captain spends a little more time at that table talking to him. But honestly, the captain roamed around real quick and kind of talked to everybody. So it was fine. But I'm not mad at all that we missed out on Captain's Table, because we got front row Gaia performance like right next to us. And that was pretty amazing. Now, again, though it was family style, everything in the food and the presentation was luxury. It was like fancy food, braised beef with a demi-glaze sauce, and everything was so well presented. The servers were top notch, and it was really cool. One thing I've seen people ask about is tipping. So you can tip your server if you're buying drinks while during dinner. They'll go get you drinks from the Sublight Lounge, like alcoholic drinks or specialty drinks. Or you can just order the normal coffee, soda, water, whatever. That's free. But if you order something that you pay for, you can tip them then. but it also includes an automatic 18% gratuity. Same thing at the Sublight Lounge. I didn't realize that until I was in a little bit, and I was like, these prices seem a little higher than I thought I saw it as. And I was, just tipped them extra, which is fine. I was like, cool. They got a good day out of me of extra tipping because they did a phenomenal job, so I didn't feel the least bit bad. But once I saw there was already an automatic 18%, I was like, okay, well, I can. They're already taken care of on their tip. Cool, I add a little bit more or whatever here and there. But just know that if you're looking at your receipts, you're like, wait a minute, this is getting kind of up there. That's why there's an automatic 18% that took me a whole night to realize was on there. But again, that's cool. They deserve it. They're awesome. They're awesome workers. So it being a luxury kind of thing, that whole luxury pampering us aspect came into play before the voyage technically even started. So I flew in a day early, and it's recommended, even with normal cruises, that you fly in a day early, right? So I flew in a day early to Orlando. I took the red eye here from Vegas all the way over, and I had a whole day to myself to do whatever. And I went to Animal Kingdom, as some of you may have seen in my previous vlogs. I was very delirious. They're kind of funny. But that night, I stayed at All-Star Music Resort, and I think Sara was there too. So were the Thank the Maker people, but we had not met. They did a podcast together. I was exhausted and did my thing at the park. And the next morning, we found out, I think Sara got a call from the hotel saying, hey, heads up, because you're Starcruiser guests, you automatically get late checkout at noon, and we'll call you a taxi cab, complimentary, they'll pay for it, they'll call a taxi cab for us to the Starcruiser. This was not advertised on the website, this was not advertised anywhere, and she literally texted me this at 10 something in the morning, and checkout was 11. So I'm already freaking out, packing, trying to get ready for 11 so I can be out of the hotel on time, and wondering what I'm going to do for the next 2 hours, because the earliest we could get Starcruiser was 1 o'clock. So this was a really cool kind of thing they do, and I did not receive the call, and I was in a different room. So I went all the way to the desk and asked them, and I was like, hey, my friend who booked all this, or travel agent who's also here, just let me know that we have something like an automatic late checkout, and we get to get a taxi or something. And the woman I spoke to at the desk was like, oh, I don't know about that. And so I was like, okay. But she got a manager. But she said, yes, you do get late checkout, and we will take care of you, is what she said. We want to take care of you. And so, yeah, they called us a cab, and they did all that, and we took a cab ride, which was interesting because the cab driver did not know where to take us because Starcruiser was so brand new. Did not know where to take us. Kind of got us lost. It was kind of funny. We had time. He was early, so we had time to get there. We still got to Starcruiser. Even though our thing was at 1, we got in at 12:40, a good 20 minutes beforehand, which was fine. But just be prepared that your driver, because there was not a bus, there was not a shuttle that we took from a hotel at least, and he got lost. So just be ready for that. Be ready. Okay, now, one interesting thing, I mentioned we go in at 1 o'clock. Some people will go in later, months before you even get there. I think I did this back in October, a week or two after we booked. I was able to do online check-in. So I put my credit card on file, and I was able to just say, hey, this is the check-in time we prefer between 1 and 4 p.m. I picked the earliest slot, 1 o'clock, so we'd have more time on the ship. And we did. It was kind of nice, actually, that we got the extra couple hours on the ship. So I would recommend doing that. That's what if you're going to go, if you're going to book. Now, when we did arrive, though, our group was actually split. The 3 other cabin members were already there before I was, so I kind of missed a little bit of the process. But when I got there with Sara's family, because we all took a cab together, I was able to tell them with the bag check when I dropped my luggage off, said, hey, look, this is actually going to mine, and it's going to be under this name, separate from their bags. And they were able to tag them separately and move them to the room. And then when I met up with the rest of my cabin mates, they had already been given this little black bag with data pads that we had to use, not our phones, their data pads, which is something I have a little bit of a complaint about, but I understand why. So it was kind of a pain in the butt to have their phone and my phone, because they were basically old, they're iPhone 12s or something, with a special case, and they had no apps except for Disney Play app and My Disney Experience, and they were locked down software-wise, so you couldn't really do much else other than those things. And that was to make sure we had a consistent guest experience. They could monitor those phones, they could troubleshoot and debug those phones if they needed to on the fly, which we did run into on our Batu excursion day. Was a little bit of issue with the Disney Play app, and they were able to kind of fix it on the fly because it was their devices, not our devices. It would have been different if it was my device, or if one of my people in the cabin had a the newest iPhone. One was using an older iPhone. Someone else had Android, and we're all trying to do a similar thing, and it's not working. That's so much harder to do if it's all these different types of devices. Whereas if we're just using their devices, so Disney provided ones, they can deliver a more consistent experience, which is why I'm like, I didn't like it. It was a pain in the ass to have to carry both of those devices, and it kind of sucked. But I understand why. I completely understand why, and I know that that actually did lead to a better overall experience with the DataPad app. I just can't shake the fact that it was just a pain. It is what it is. So after we get there, we get our DataPads. We waited in this little corral for a little bit, and they sent us through security. And just like a normal airport security type thing, they kind of go through your bags that you're holding, like if you have any carry-ons. Otherwise, they take your baggage that you check and they put it to your room for you. But they do search those. They do screen them at least. And if there's one of our cabin mates had a hammer and some other tools for costuming to like do rivets and stuff like that. If anything broke, like they came prepared to work on their costume if they needed to. And security actually screened and had them remove those items from their checked bag before it made it up to the room. So we got to the room, we were missing a bag. And we're like, wait, what? And that's why, because it had those kind of contraband tools. So you don't want to bring that kind of stuff, just a heads up. They made them put it in someone's car. And we didn't have a car, so we had a friend who did have a car. And we had to like partner with them. Be like, hey, we got to go back out of this Starcruiser, down through security, identify the items, take them, put them in someone's car, like have them valet the car back, because you can't park. They valet for you. There's no parking lot for you to use. You drive up, and if you're not in a cab, if you're in your own car, it's automatically free valet, but they will drive your car and park it for you. You do not park yourself. Nobody does. So just keep that in mind too. It's automatic valet. Everybody gets valeted or dropped off in a taxi or shuttle. But once we did that, went through security, got screened. Lovely security man who recognized me. I was like, oh, nice. That was really cool. It was a neat first welcome. Just went through security. Joseph was a fan of the channel. Nice to meet you, Joseph. Thank you so much for saying hi. To do that. And it was also cool just seeing, even in line where we were, seeing people I knew from the Facebook groups, people I knew just from the internet. And it was really a neat start to all of it. So after we go through security, we go through this long, really beautiful hallway, and you turn right, and it's like this big screen where they show you it's a little video detailing what a real emergency, like a real world, if something were to happen, emergency procedures, versus a show, story, fun Star Wars Disney element that's happening. Because there are like, everybody report to the atrium and alarms go off, but that's part of the story, and that's like for fun. Whereas they do want you to know, hey, look, if it's a real emergency, let's, God forbid something happens. If it's a real emergency, this is what we need to do just for safety reasons. Heads up. This is how we handle it. Just one of those things that's necessary, right? During that video, though, I do wish they would have spent maybe 2 or 3 minutes in that video explaining how to play properly. So one of my, criticisms is, I just saw it now. I guess it was in the bag with the data pads. There was a paper that I did not see because I arrived late. But there was a paper that does briefly explain how to play. But I think it should have been in the video as well because people don't read. I didn't read. But just something that says, hey, look, when you engage with characters and talk with characters, that could be what prompts, like real life characters, that might be what prompts your data pad, one of them to send you a message. Or when you scan your, it should say hey, scan your magic band on different places and explore and see what happens without spoiling story, but letting you know that when you do that kind of stuff, that's what opens up options on your data pad. At the end of the first night, I had hardly received any messages. I think I received messages from the scoundrel and that maybe the cruise director, late. But because I was so busy with other stuff, I hadn't explored where the lightsaber dojo was. I didn't go out to the climate simulator. I barely even talked to the Saja, who were the lightsaber trainers. And so because of that, I didn't get any messages from them. And I answered my first question on I want the Force to guide me, a very Jedi kind of answer. So I thought maybe it's going to send me down the Jedi path and the Saja will come talk to me. I never got any correspondence from the Saja. And I knew people in my group that did. I'm like, wait, what happened? What did I do different? And turns out they went and spoke to the Saja. They explored down in the lightsaber dojo. They went to the climate simulator, which is nearby. And so because they explored differently and a little bit more, they unlocked different paths that I did not. And it would have been nice to know that ahead of time. So it's kind of a little bit of a gripe for me. Like, I understand it now, but I think people would benefit from knowing that ahead of time, knowing that when you scan in somewhere, and there's even moments with characters that the character will be talking to you and they'll ask you to, hey, come scan your magic band over here real quick. And that will open up another story tree in your path or whatever. So just maybe if they would have added a little brief overview on how to play better on video, because apparently it was on paper and I didn't see that paper ever. All right, so after the security and you watch that little video, you wait for your launch pod. And the launch pod was really cool. I was like the first one in the launch pod for our group. I was like waiting and waiting and waiting. And we get up there, and the launch pod is, I'll be honest, it's a little anticlimactic. You don't even really feel it. I thought it was going to be like, oh, we're going to feel it move, and we get there. You have these two little rectangular slits for windows at the top where you can see like the trees, and then all of a sudden you're in hyperspace, and then all of a sudden you're there. The whole thing's like maybe a minute long, if that. And you can see the little droids like picking up the launch pod and bringing you to the ship. It's cool looking, but it's not amazing. I thought maybe we'd feel like more rumble. It would move a little bit more like a ride. It does not. It does not. It's more just the screens and the sounds. And then when you get there, the atrium door is open, and you're greeted by a bunch of cast members. Now, these cast members are there to check you in. Like, they take your name down, they look up your reservation, and if your room's ready, which in most cases it should be, when your room's ready, they take you down to your room, and your bags are already there. And they give you a little tour of the room, a little tour of the ship on the way. And it's nice. It's a nice little thing that they do, and it's like, okay, now that you've been oriented where the ship is, they kind of walk you around the atrium a little bit, kind of show you around, then they take you to your room. Now you know where your room is. Do you have any questions? They explain some of the features, the droid on the wall that you can talk to inside your cabin, the lights and how stuff works in there. And they're like, all right, if we're good, they take off, and so you're free to go grab something to eat over in the dining room. They've got lunch that's being served, and otherwise have fun, go explore. So it was really neat the way that worked. Now, once you're free to explore, that agenda, your itinerary, has a lot of stuff going on. There's like a little captain's reception in the atrium. Sometimes you have, some people have bridge training scheduled super early. We did not. Ours was late. And, or you could have lightsaber training that's scheduled, because those things are scheduled for everybody, but in different time slots. So not everybody does it at the same time, right? Because you've got 100 rooms. So let's say between 300 to 400 people, maybe. Probably like 300 people, 300 to 325 people, something like that is what I'm guessing the average would be on a full ship. So in order to have room for all of that, because these spaces, the training dojo and the bridge, won't accommodate that many people all at once. So they break it up into these time slots. Now, it was really cool. Both of those things, lightsaber training and bridge training, were fantastic. Way cooler than I even thought they would be. Remember, we saw Josh Tomorrow kind of doing it. It is that. It actually is that, but doing it in person feels cooler, and it gets faster, and I don't want to spoil it, but it's better than what we saw Josh Tomorrow doing, even though it's the same. I know that's confusing and vague, but just trust me on that. You'll see in my spoiler video if you want to watch that. Now, the other thing I mentioned that is scheduled for you is bridge training, and this is the part that I kind of have a complaint about. Is, like I mentioned earlier, you could have early bridge training. We had late bridge training. But the bridge training goes down like this. You get in there, and they put you at stations. And they say, all right, find your station, partner up with somebody, because you're probably going to be doing some teamwork stuff of like pairs of two. So there's shields. There's like cargo loaders where you like control these little robots that pick up crates. There's the one with the console, like the reticule that one of you moves it, the other one fires. There's systems where you have to like solve these little puzzles. Really, really cool stuff. Every little station was cool, and they walk you through each one. And they kind of tell you, hey, look, this is what you're going to be doing. This is what you're going to be doing. This is what we're going to be doing. And then they rotate everybody. And so you get to try every different station. And then once everybody's rotated, then a story element happens. And that's different depending on what time slot you have. So you might have one that is very, very important, and you might see some main characters. We did not. We got to see C-3PO and R2-D2 on a screen. We ended up going to Hoth. I mean, that's one. It's not a major story spoiler. But it was cool to see that and do that, but it wasn't as impactful as some of the other ones. And as someone who arrived as a Resistance pilot, I might have wanted to do something a bit more impactful dealing with the Resistance. and I didn't get to, and I didn't get to make that choice. And that's my gripe, is that part is up to luck of the draw. It's just whatever you're scheduled for. And I feel like the one we got was kind of weak. I had so much fun though during the bridge training. Me and Mike from Hondo Supply really hit it off with teamwork, and we got it down really well on all of them. In fact, out of our rotating group that I think we were like the White Wampas or something. It was like White Wampas, so Red Rathtars, something Minox. There is like little groups that you're in, and we were the Wampas. And out of our Wampa group, me and him ended up having like the best score every time, which was really fun. And also, I should say, I got to even pull the hyperdrive, and I got to put the ship into hyperdrive, and it was a really funny moment. Confidence gets it done, and it was really cool. It was so much fun to get to do all of that stuff. But again, my gripe is that I didn't get to choose to be more involved in the resistance part of the story that I would have liked to. And it is what it is. It is what it is. But I wish I could have chosen that, because I didn't get any. Like after everything, I arrived as a resistance pilot, and I hardly did anything resistance. In fact, I went almost full scoundrel. I mean, no, not even almost. I did go full scoundrel as you can get, as literally hands-on scoundrel as you can get. So, also be open. When you get there, be open to maybe letting the path guide for you. Like the Force did its thing. I said I was going to let the Force decide. It kind of did, and it took me on a path I didn't think I would go on, which ended up being really cool. Okay, so we mentioned some things about important main characters that I did not really get to see much of. One of the best things about this whole Starcruiser experience, because it's not a hotel, it's a whole experience. It's eating, it's story that is everywhere around you, is these characters. The actors are amazing. I mean, honestly, the whole cast is amazing. Like everybody from the people who get your drinks to your servers to people who are just there to be helpful and give you information. Every single time I spoke to a cast member, whether they were one of the main character actors or just anyone else, these are like top-notch cast members. I have never seen such, like, they were all so good at everything they did. Every single one of them. And they were so much fun. Again, these are like the people just welcoming you into the Sublight Lounge, or maybe getting you a drink late. Like, everybody was so good. But these characters, these actors, I want to focus on them for right now, made this experience. There's, Gaia. We've seen Gaia, the Twi'lek performer, the captain, Lenka Mock, Sammy, the mechanic, Lieutenant Croy, the First Order officer who arrives. I know I'm forget Wraith Cole. How could I forget Wraith? Come on, Wraith ended up being one of our like favorite character. We loved Wraith, and he's a scoundrel. That was kind of what we got brought in on. And so these actors are so impressive at what they're able to do. So at one point, we were involved in a very scoundrel type thing, and it was on a very short time frame of about 10 minutes. We had to meet up somewhere and plan out what we were going to do. And part of that kept getting interrupted by people walking in the room when we were trying to be very secretive. And this actor was able to not only like keep our group focused and like in it, but also get interrupted, welcome new people, and recognize them by name. I mentioned they learn your name. He would be like, "Oh, good, you're here, so-and-so." By first name basis, keep the story going, keep time to be ready for the next event so that when it hits on your data pad, we're all on the same page and not a beat was missed. And even with little kids like wanting to interrupt and, "Oh, I saw this kind of thing," they handled it, put the kid like, if a kid said, "Oh, I want to do something," they would include them. They included the adults. Like, I was very included in this event, which I'll go into in my spoiler review. Very, very included in this. And even the kids that wanted to be included got to be included. And he would find a place for them and make them useful while also keeping them from jogging down the story. Like, they are so good at what they do. Disney hired superhumans to do this. They had to be superhumans to be able to act in character and not break character, but also control people and like keep us all corralled and herded in a way that like made sense, that these events that involved us, like they involved us in this thing happening and we were part of it. We were what made it work, but it took the actor to get us there and push us there to do it the right way, all while handling little kids who can be chaotic, like all while handling chaos and all of this other stuff happening. And I was just so impressed by how they were able to do that. And the fact that this story is happening around you it's 360 degrees of story. There were moments where I was kind of wandering by myself, and I happened upon the captain running into Lieutenant Croy, and they had a brief conversation that only I saw. That conversation would have happened if I wasn't there. If I was somewhere else and no one else was around, they would have still had that conversation because the story is alive and it's happening on multiple floors throughout this cruise. And once you realize that, it is so crazy to think about the planning, the training these people must have gone through to memorize everybody's name. Not everybody, but they do a really good job of learning your name. Like, I was on a first name basis with all the characters. By like the first night, they all knew who I was. And that's like Sandro, the musician, Wraith Cole, Linka Mock, the captain, Lieutenant Croy for sure. Me and him were definitely on first name basis. We had some dirty looks with each other and some interesting conversation. It was so much fun, and these actors made this experience worth it. And how do you put a price on that? How do you put a price on what that entertainment is? So when I say it's worth it, I weigh in. Sure, I did have a place to stay that was really cool, very comfortable, unique. The food was really good. It was really cool. It was unique. This whole experience, like those things you can quantify. A day trip to Hollywood Studios to go to Galaxy's Edge for the excursions. You can quantify that with a ticket price and Lightning Lane price. Food, you can put a dollar amount on that. Lodging, you can put a dollar amount on that. But how do you put a dollar amount on these actors that are the story that was written and put together, all of this planning? How do you price that? And when I walk away from it, I look and say, I couldn't spend $5,000, just me, way more than what I paid, but I couldn't spend $5,000 to replicate that the way it was done. It was that unique and that special that there's nothing like it. It sucks because it is so expensive, but I couldn't do that anywhere else. And I think that's my biggest takeaway is like, this was a very special experience. I am sad that a lot of people won't be able to afford it and do it. If that's a thing that like you really want to and you want to figure out how you can, because it's Disney and we live in a world where prices of everything go up. I don't want to get too into it, but like it's all hocus pocus anyways, right? So it's one of those things where like inflation's going to keep going up. Prices are just going to keep going up. People aren't going to make as much money. Wage stagnation's a real thing. So you can be mad at Disney about it, but also the whole system's kind of made so that people make less money over time. It's not like the 70s or 80s where a family really could easily afford something like this. Now to afford something like this, it's different. It takes a lot more. People don't get paid as much. We're not worth as much to the corporations as we used to be. And that's only going to get worse over time. And add to that the fact that Disney is a luxury property. You know, it's like a luxury thing. It's a very expensive, overpriced thing. And so it means less people are going to get to experience this. But it is attainable. You can put 20% down, and then if you book far enough out, you can set yourself up with like payment plans, so you can pay what you can afford to, save to put towards it over time, and that way by the time you hit your 90-day mark and the rest of it's due, you can work out a way to afford it month to month to month. So it is possible, and it's definitely suggested you go with people who are gonna dress up, who are gonna get engaged, who are gonna have fun and dive in. Because that is also what makes the experience. And that's what made my experience so special, was the people I was with as well. So it's really, really hard for me to like quantify it with a dollar amount of what it was worth. Because I know that if I had paid more, I still would be like, yeah, that was worth it. What I got out of that and the fun that I had and the experience that I went through, I can't replicate that anywhere else. I can't do that anywhere else. And so I can't say how much it's worth, but I can tell you that to me it was worth it. All right, guys, that's enough rambling from me. This has been one long, big take. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned. I'm going to put out my actual footage of like how it all unfolded. Not the best footage in the world because I was engaged and I wasn't really focused on camera. I was trying to enjoy myself. So it'll be a mix, kind of like this retelling, but with spoilers. So make sure you're subscribed. Until next time, don't be a moof milker. Be the spark.